This weekend kicked off just like any other Saturday. I woke up a little later than usual and leaned over, like always, to give my wife of 17 years a good morning kiss. Without even opening her eyes, she mumbled, "Ethan, let me sleep, will you? I can't get any peace with you bothering me at night and now in the morning too." "The girls are probably already up." Her tone wasn't new, but it stung all the same. I chuckled, trying to keep things light. "You're right. They're old enough to take care of themselves. We won't be disturbed." With that, I dragged myself out of bed, grabbed my robe, and headed for the shower. As I passed by Layla's room, I could hear some noise. Sounded like Eliza was attempting to drag her sister out of bed. I figured it was best to let them sort it out. After freshening up, I got dressed and made my way to the kitchen. Sure enough, my daughters were already seated at the table, looking a little annoyed. Layla spoke up first. "Are we actually having breakfast today, or what?" "We've still got to go to school," I laughed. "What are you talking about? You're on New Year's break, remember? You're both heading to Grandma's today." Layla gave me a puzzled look. "And what about you? Aren't you on break too? It's a long weekend." "Wasn't this all Mom's plan?" I shrugged. "Well, why don't you two make your own breakfast then?" Eliza piped in. "We would, but Mom won't let us. She's convinced we'll burn everything and destroy the pans. The only thing we're allowed to make is scrambled eggs." Trying to keep the mood light, I said, "What about oatmeal or semolina porridge, like they eat in England?" Layla grinned. "Oatmeal, please, sir." I smirked. "Oatmeal it is, miss." "Guess we'll save the oats for the horses," I added, "and make sure there are no lumps in the semolina. Now, go wash your face and brush your teeth. Breakfast will be ready in 15 minutes." While I whipped up breakfast for my girls, I heard Arya emerge from the bedroom and head straight to the bathroom. The girls sat down to eat, and soon after, Arya joined us at the table, her hair neatly brushed, looking like she hadn't a care in the world. She was wearing one of my shirts, something she often did, and even after all these years, despite everything, there was still a part of me that found her beautiful. But beneath the surface, there was tension, a crack in our foundation that I couldn't ignore. Arya sat down and addressed the girls. "Finish up and get ready. Daddy's taking you to Grandma's," Layla immediately protested. "But, Mom, you promised we'd go to the ski center for the week. We've already packed our stuff. We were excited to celebrate New Year's together." Arya didn't even flinch. "Girls, we don't always get what we want. We'll go to the ski center during spring break, when there's no more snow, or maybe we'll head to Palmer. They have snow all year in the mountains. Now finish eating and get ready." I couldn't say I was thrilled about sending the girls off to my mother-in-law's, especially after Arya had conveniently forgotten about our ski trip. I had my suspicions about her, especially with Owen, the new commercial director at her job. She never mentioned him to me, even though they went to college together. The distance between us had been growing ever since Owen came into the picture. I didn't want to believe she'd crossed the line, but I knew enough to be cautious. There hadn't been anything obvious, just some mild flirting, but that was enough to make my gut churn. And now, Arya sending the kids off for the weekend felt like a setup for something I wasn't sure I was ready to confront. But I had prepared. I wasn't about to let this weekend slide by without knowing the truth. I had a recorder tucked in my pocket, ready to catch whatever might unfold. As Arya sat silently across from me, I could tell something was brewing. She glanced at me, offered a weak smile that faded almost as quickly as it appeared, and said in a serious tone, "Ethan, we need to talk." The way she said it made my stomach tighten. I tried to keep my cool. "Is something wrong?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Arya sighed. "No, nothing's wrong. I love you, Ethan. I have for years. You've been a great husband and an even better father. I still want to grow old with you, maybe even leave this world on the same day." I was confused. "So, what's the problem?" I asked. Arya hesitated for a moment, then said, "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I believe we need a break. Some space to explore life on our own." We'd come back together with fresh perspectives, and it would only strengthen our relationship. How long of a break are you talking about? A month? A year? I asked, my voice steady despite the anger creeping up inside. No, nothing like that. Just a 2-week holiday weekend, she said, almost casually. And that's why the kids are going to your mom's instead of the ski trip? I asked, though it wasn't really a question anymore. I knew the answer. She nodded. Yes, I've already made arrangements with my mom. I couldn't hold it in any longer. So, you and your lover came up with this elaborate theory about space just so you can have a weekend fling? Is that it? I couldn't believe I was saying it out loud, but there it was, everything I'd been suspecting. Arya's face barely registered surprise. Ethan, I really don't know what you're talking about. Who do you think my lover is? Yes, this might sound selfish, but I think this will be good for both of us. When we come back together, you'll see. Things won't change between us. I couldn't take her playing dumb anymore. It's Owen. Your new commercial director. You had an affair with him back in college. He dumped you, and then you latched onto me. You didn't say a word about him becoming your boss now. And you're wrong. Things have already changed. She tried to act confused. What do you mean, everything? Your attitude towards me, towards the girls. It's all different now, I said, my voice louder than I intended. Ethan, you're imagining things. I still love you. How are you going to explain our divorce to your parents? Or to Layla and Eliza? What will they think? She asked, now suddenly concerned about appearances. Divorce? We're not getting divorced, I replied, though I knew something fundamental had already broken between us. But don't think I'm buying this sociological theory you and Owen cooked up. You're making this more complicated than it is, she said dismissively. Take the girls, and we'll figure it out when you get back. We're not resolving anything, I said firmly. I'm leaving. Her voice trembled as she protested. You can't just do this to me. Oh, I can. And I will, I shot back, my resolve unwavering. Divorce wasn't something I had planned, but now that I've made up my mind, it's happening. She tried to backpedal, her tone desperate. But I said I was calling it off. Yeah, you did. Then you said we talk about it after I got back. Meanwhile, you can enjoy your free weekend while I chauffeur the girls around. Maybe you can chat it over with Owen. My words were sharp, cutting through whatever facade she was trying to maintain. Our tense conversation was interrupted by Layla as she walked into the kitchen. Daddy, we're ready to go. I'll be ready in 5 minutes, I replied, quickly throwing on some clothes, grabbing my laptop, and slinging my backpack over my shoulder. Without even a glance in Arya's direction, I headed downstairs, started the car, and waited for it to warm up. Soon enough, the girls climbed in. As we pulled out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Arya watching us from the window, looking bewildered and lost. The drive was silent at first, the weight of everything hanging heavy in the air. Eventually, Layla spoke up, breaking the tension. Daddy, Grandma lives on the other side of the road. I know, sweetheart, I replied. But you two were promised a ski lodge, and that's exactly where we're going now. We'll figure out a place to stay once we get there. Layla hesitated before asking, her voice shaky. Dad, are you and Mom getting a divorce? The question hit me hard, but I tried to keep my tone steady. Why would you ask that, honey? We heard you arguing in the kitchen today, Layla confessed. We're on your side, aren't we, Eliza? Eliza, sitting quietly in the back, nodded. Yeah, I'm on Dad's side too. But where are we going to live? For now, we'll stay at Grandma's. I'll drop you off at school later to grab your books and some clothes. But for now, let's not worry too much, okay? Let's enjoy our vacation. You girls deserve it. Back at the house, Arya was still standing by the window, watching us drive away. After a moment, she pulled out her phone and dialed Owen's number. He picked up immediately. Owen, it's Arya. We've got a problem. But don't worry, I'm alone. Has your husband left yet? Owen's voice was calm but laced with concern. He's leaving tonight. He just went to the store, probably on his way back now. What's going on? Owen asked, sounding slightly alarmed. He didn't react the way we expected. He didn't believe me, Arya admitted, her voice growing tense. What do you mean? Who exactly are we talking about? Owen pressed. My husband. I suggested the 2-week separation like we talked about, but he didn't go for it. He's already talking about getting a divorce. That's bad news, Owen muttered, clearly worried. A divorce is going to create a huge scandal. The office gossip mill will eat this up, and Nina's bound to find out. I'm not looking for a divorce, Owen. I don't want this to blow up like that. You've never really wanted a divorce, have you? Owen said, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. So what's your next move? Arya sighed. He's dropping the girls at my parents' place and then coming back. But I don't think he's leaving tonight. Then tell him there's no temporary separation, Owen instructed. Make sure he knows it's off the table. We need to let his anger cool down and avoid any gossip spilling into the office. This could get messy. I already tried that, but he didn't believe me. He thinks I'll just convince him to agree once he gets back. When's he supposed to return? Owen asked. It should take him 3 or 4 hours to get back, Arya said. All right, that's our plan then. When he gets back, tell him there's no separation. We can't afford for this to get out of control, especially not at work, Owen concluded. After hanging up, Arya felt a little more grounded with Owen's advice. She decided to busy herself, trying to make the house feel more welcoming. She set the table but avoided cooking, opting to head out to a cafe and pick up some takeout instead. She even bought a bottle of wine, placing it on the table with a corkscrew and 2 glasses. She heated up a few appetizers she'd purchased, then settled into the armchair in the living room, turning on the TV, though her mind wasn't on it. As she sat there, sipping her wine, Arya couldn't help but wonder, was this brief affair really worth risking everything? Her family, her marriage, was it worth it for a fling with an old flame? She wasn't sure how much Ethan knew, but it was clear he suspected more than she'd anticipated. The fact that Owen had once been her classmate and was now her boss had probably been a mistake to reveal, but Ethan would have found out eventually. Owen had disappeared from her life for years, only to suddenly reappear, reigniting something she hadn't expected. 4 hours passed, and Ethan still hadn't returned. He should have been back by now. Growing anxious, Arya picked up the phone and called her mother. After a short delay, her mom answered. Hey, honey. How are you doing? It's getting dark earlier these days. Your dad and I are just sitting here, having a little disagreement. What's the disagreement about? Arya asked, though she wasn't really paying attention. Oh, the usual, her mom replied, laughing. He wanted a drink, and I told him no, but of course, he found the bottle. And you? How are things? When are you bringing the girls over? Arya realized Ethan hadn't arrived at her parents' place yet. After hanging up, she dialed my parents' number, hoping for some answers. My dad, a retired military man who never minced words, answered the phone. Arya, what's going on? I bet you're calling to ask about Ethan and the girls, right? He already gave us a heads up about this. Arya tried to play it cool. Yes, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Don't try to pull one over on me, Arya, my dad cut her off. Ethan told us about the divorce. That's ridiculous, Arya protested, her voice growing more frantic. We had a disagreement, sure, but we're not getting divorced over something like that. It's not just about a disagreement. There's another man involved, some guy from your office, my dad stated, his tone firm. Ethan told me everything. This morning at breakfast, you suggested a 2-week separation. When he refused, you said you'd drop it but hinted you'd bring it up later. Is that right? No, that's not true, Arya insisted. Ethan's had enough, Arya. He's decided on a divorce. He left to take care of things and isn't coming back. He assumed you were still sitting at home waiting for him, Arya, her voice tight with panic, asked. Where did he go? He didn't say, my dad responded, and honestly, I think that's for the best. We were so upset we didn't even think to ask him where he was going. If he calls, just tell him he misunderstood everything. I really did my best for our family, but now I see I messed up, Arya pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. My dad's voice came back over the line, firm and unyielding. My wife and I have been through a lot together, and no matter how tough things got, the thought of separation never crossed our minds. Who put these ridiculous ideas in your head? If you're in love with another man, why drag everyone else through this mess? If you're ready for a lover, leave Ethan and the kids. Don't destroy everyone's lives just because you're confused. Ethan will survive, and frankly, he'll probably be better off. He's still young, good-looking, and a good father. The girls will do fine with him, Arya, her voice breaking, whispered. There's not going to be a divorce, that's your opinion, my dad shot back. But I know my son better than you do. I think you've forgotten who you married. I just need to explain everything to him. He'll see that he's wrong. He'll call. I'll explain, Arya said, trying to convince herself as much as my father before abruptly ending the call. Still shaken, Arya dialed Owen's number next, but when the call connected, a woman's voice answered instead. Hello? Caught off guard, Arya asked. Is Owen there? Who's asking? The woman replied coldly. My name is Arya. We work together. Oh, I know who you are, the woman responded sharply. Let me save you the trouble, don't bother calling him again. I kicked him out, and he doesn't have a phone anymore. Arya's confusion deepened. Is something wrong? She asked, unsure of how to process this information. You really don't know? I've moved twice because of that cheating bastard. He's a liar and a womanizer, and I'm not leaving this house again because of him. Arya's voice trembled as she asked, where is Owen now? How should I know? I kicked him out. Maybe he's at your place, the woman said with a bitter laugh. Arya quickly denied it. He doesn't know where I live. Why would he be at my place? The woman's voice was laced with disdain. Oh, he knows exactly where you live. He works with you, doesn't he? But let me tell you, you weren't the only one. He had plans to meet up with others too while I was out of town. Meanwhile, I was driving with the girls, heading to a ski resort far enough away from everything. I had a friend there, Leo, an old classmate who'd become the director of the place. As I drove, I called him to explain the situation. He didn't hesitate to help. Ethan, anything for you, buddy. I've got a few cabins available, and one's all yours. I'll take care of everything. A house for 3 people? It'll be perfect. That sounds great, Leo. But I have a favor to ask. If anyone calls, don't mention I'm here with the girls. I need to keep this quiet, not a problem. I'll make sure your stay is private. When are you arriving? We're about an hour and a half away. The roads are icy, so I'm taking it slow. I'll get everything ready for you. Just let them know you're here to see me, and they'll direct you, Leo said before we ended the call. About an hour and a half later, we pulled up to the ski lodge. I told the gatekeeper we were there to see Leo, and he pointed us in the right direction. After parking in a covered lot near the lodge, the girls and I gathered our things and made our way to the cabin. Inside, Leo was already waiting for us at the table. Hurry up. The food's getting cold, he called out with a grin as we walked in. Always in a rush, I replied with a smile. Let the girls freshen up first. They've been cooped up in the car for hours. Layla and Eliza grabbed their things and headed upstairs. They came down not long after, wearing their tracksuits, looking satisfied with the rooms. They were growing up so fast. Leo glanced around, then asked, "Where's Arya?" "Why didn't she come?" "That's a story for later," I said, waving off the question. "For now, let's toast to our reunion. You've always been eager and slow at the same time," Leo teased as we clinked glasses and reminisced about old times. Every now and then, we were interrupted by the girls' questions or laughter, which lightened the mood a bit. Eventually, Eliza asked Leo about the activities at the lodge. "What else is there to do here?" "Well, there's a dance party happening in the hall right now, but we didn't bring anything to wear for dancing," Eliza said, a bit disappointed. Leo chuckled. "There's no dress code. Just come as you are." Layla perked up. "So, we can go too?" "Of course. I'll get one of my staff to escort you there," Leo said. A few minutes later, a young employee arrived and guided the girls to the party. Once they were gone, Leo turned to me, serious now. "So, why the divorce? What happened? You remember when Arya and I first started dating? There were always rumors about her seeing someone else." "Yeah, I remember. But they were just rumors. Nothing concrete ever came out. Well, this guy from out of town, Owen, shows up as the commercial director at Arya's job. Turns out, they had a thing back in college. At first, it seemed like harmless flirting, but it's become more than that, an emotional affair. His wife, Nina, found out and told me everything." Leo raised an eyebrow. "She cheated on you, not physically, but they came up with this ridiculous plan to strengthen our marriage by spending the long weekend apart. Arya even suggested it was some kind of sociological experiment," I said, shaking my head. "I've always had my doubts about sociologists. They study society, come up with these so-called laws, but half of them are nonsense." Leo nodded in agreement. "You're right about that. So, what's your plan now?" "I've decided to end it. There's no way I can stay in this marriage after what's happened. I'm done," I said, feeling a heavy weight lift from my shoulders. Leo gave me a solemn look. "What's next, then?" "I need to figure out the logistics. There's a group of lawyers coming to town tomorrow. I'll meet with them and see what my options are." "Well, then, let's pour another drink," Leo said as he refilled our glasses. The girls returned from the dance around 11 p.m., escorted back by a ski lodge staff member. I prepared a quick late-night snack for them, and we ate together before they headed off to bed. Once they were asleep, I sat on my own bed, struggling to hold back tears. It had been a long, emotionally draining day, and I couldn't shake the weight of everything Arya had done. I pulled out the tape recorder and listened to the conversation I'd recorded earlier, solidifying in my mind that I was making the right decision. Arya hadn't waited for me, and she had no clue where I had taken our daughters. But I had promised them a trip to the ski lodge, and that's exactly what we did. I suspected Arya had been searching for clues about where we'd gone. She likely fired up my computer, trying to track down the lodges I'd looked at. But she wouldn't find anything. The next morning, I woke to the sound of knocking on my door. "Come in," I called, and my daughters rushed in, full of energy and excitement, ready for the day. "Daddy, wake up. Let's have breakfast and go skiing. And then we can go ice skating. There's an ice rink here," the girls said, their excitement pulling me from sleep. "Yes, I heard there is." "Where should we have breakfast?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. "At the cafe," they answered in unison. "All right, wash up and I'll be ready in 5 minutes," I replied, getting out of bed. We made our way to the cafe for breakfast, and afterward, changed into our skiing gear. Once we rented our skis, we headed up the mountain on the lift. The morning flew by as we skied until lunchtime, laughing and enjoying every moment. After a short break and a quick change of clothes, we went back to the cafe. There, we bumped into Leo and his wife. "Hey, the group I mentioned has arrived," Leo said, pulling me aside. "Including that divorce lawyer I talked to you about." "Good timing," I replied. "Meet me in my office later today. I've got a computer, printer, everything you'll need. Also, if you don't mind, my wife, her sister, and I can take the girls to the ice rink tonight. They've been asking to go dancing again, and we'll join them. It'll be a fun night." "Sounds like a plan," I said, feeling a bit of relief. "And don't forget, tomorrow's New Year's Eve." We've got some celebrating to do. After lunch, Leo and I went to his office, where the lawyer, Luna, was already waiting for us. We dove right into it, discussing the divorce and the next steps. Luna laid out the legal options, most of which I wasn't familiar with. Don't make any rash decisions about the apartment, she advised. Remember, your daughters will grow up and likely have families of their own. You want to ensure they'll have their space, too. If you stay in the apartment now, it could become complicated down the road, especially if there's ever a new partner involved. I understand, but living there with Arya? That's hard to picture, I admitted. Try to envision it and consider proposing a partition, she suggested. First things first, explain to your wife that you'll be filing for divorce. When will the paperwork be ready? I asked, eager to move forward. No need to rush. The courts are on holiday, too. I've got my laptop, so I'll prepare everything, and we can print it when you're ready. If you want, you can also hire me to represent you in court. I like that idea, I agreed. That evening, we celebrated New Year's with Leo, his wife, her sister, and the group of lawyers. It was a lively night in the ski lodge's large hall, filled with music, laughter, and dancing. Other vacationers joined in, and the atmosphere was festive and warm. As the early hours of the morning crept in, I returned to the cabin with my daughters, who were tired and ready for bed. After tucking them in, I rejoined the company for a little while longer. Once the main hall festivities wrapped up, we gathered in my cabin, sitting around the fireplace until we all eventually retired to our separate cabins. The following days were a blur of skiing, ice skating, and evening dance parties. One evening, Leo pulled me aside again. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "You know," I began, pausing to gather my thoughts. "During the day, with the skiing and the girls, I'm fine. But there are nights when I cry. A lot. Still, I feel more prepared now for what's coming than I ever have." The day to pack up finally arrived, and as we got ready to leave, I had a serious conversation with Layla and Eliza about the apartment and the importance of keeping it for the future. We stopped by a mall to grab some groceries before heading home, pulling into the driveway just as the darkness fell. As soon as we got inside, the girls immediately started rearranging their rooms. Eliza decided to move all her things into Layla's room. Just as they were finishing up, Arya walked in, her voice tinged with suspicion. "What are you two doing?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "We're turning Eliza's room into Dad's room," Eliza explained simply. "We're sharing one room now, that's what Dad said," Layla added, backing up her sister. Arya looked frustrated but said nothing. With their room arrangements complete, the girls got ready for school while I focused on making dinner and prepping breakfast for the next morning. Arya lingered in the kitchen, clearly wanting to start a conversation. "I won't tolerate any of your boyfriends in the house," I said flatly, breaking the silence. "You can meet them wherever you like, but know this, I'm filing for divorce." Arya looked taken aback but didn't respond. Instead, she went to the girls' room, hoping to engage with them. "Do you girls want to talk to me?" she asked softly, her voice betraying her desperation. "No, we didn't miss you," Layla answered bluntly. "Dad told us to stay out of his way for the rest of the week." Arya's face fell, but I didn't intervene. I, Layla, and Eliza kept to ourselves, locking the doors to the rooms we occupied. I cooked for myself and the girls, ignoring Arya's presence entirely. On Friday evening, a young woman delivered a registered letter to Arya. It was the summons, along with the divorce papers. After reading them, Arya stormed into the kitchen, her face wet with tears. "Ethan, why are you doing this? Why do you want a divorce?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I thought we could work things out." "Talk to your lawyer about it," I said coldly, refusing to engage. Arya mentioned that Owen had disappeared, likely hoping it would change something between us. "Why don't you ask him for advice?" I suggested, completely unmoved. "I have no one," she whispered, her voice cracking as the tears kept coming. The girls had already eaten and gone to their room, not uttering a single word to their mother. In a last-ditch effort, Arya continued to plead with me, insisting that she still loved me and that she loved our daughters. But it didn't matter anymore. My resolve was unshakable. "What does love have to do with this?" I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "I did love you once, but that was before I found out about your affair with Owen. Someone you never even mentioned to me. It was stupid to keep loving you after that. You wanted to talk. Fine, let's talk. Tell me, what were you planning for this weekend? How were you going to spend it? It's been a while since I heard one of your brilliant sociological theories from your friend. Go ahead, enlighten me. Did you enjoy yourself? I hope you had a blast, especially now that your buddy has disappeared again." I finished dinner, my anger simmering, and began clearing the table. Hearing the dishes clatter, Layla came into the kitchen and offered to help. "Go upstairs and tidy your room," I told her gently. "I'll handle the dishes and take care of ironing your clothes." "They're already dry." Arya, seeing that I wasn't going to give her the response she wanted, retreated to her room in tears. After washing the dishes and turning off the lights, I went to my room, where a pile of laundry awaited ironing. Before heading to bed, I made my way back to the kitchen, only to find Arya sitting there alone in the dark. Seeing me, Arya immediately started talking. "Ethan, none of this was planned. It just happened. I dated Owen back in university, but then he disappeared without a word. No one pushed me into anything. Hardly anyone even knew we were together, let alone that he dumped me out of the blue. So when he showed up at my job, we started working together, and then he asked me out to lunch. At first, it was just that, lunch. But things changed. He was the one who insisted everything had to be secret, that we couldn't let our spouses find out. I agreed, thinking it was just a fling, something meaningless. That's what this separation was supposed to be, our first and only date. "So you made up this whole story to justify your affair?" I asked, my voice hardening. "I didn't think it would go this far," she admitted. "But I went along with Owen's plan, can't you see? He was using you." "How could you be so naive?" I shot back, unable to hide my frustration. "It wasn't like that," she protested. "You haven't complimented me in ages. My looks, my clothes, my hair." Don't you dare try to blame me," I interrupted. "Just because I haven't showered you with compliments lately doesn't mean you can justify having an affair. So, what? Anyone who flatters you is fair game." Over the next few days, I had a lot to prepare for. My lawyer, Luna, had informed me that the opinion of child welfare officials would carry significant weight in court, though the children's views would also be considered. The pressure of everything weighed heavily on me. Nights were the hardest, and sleep became elusive as my mind was consumed with thoughts of love and betrayal. Arya's actions left me angry and heartbroken, and the only thing I wanted now was a divorce, even though it still felt far off. Trust had been shattered, and there was no going back. On top of it all, I had to think about the girls. They had distanced themselves from Arya, and I knew that wouldn't easily change. During one conversation, Arya had the nerve to argue that we should stay together for the sake of the kids, to make our marriage work. My response was firm and final. Our children need to know that we love them, no matter what happens. They aren't responsible for this mess. They're old enough to form their own opinions, and they've already done that. I haven't spoken ill of you to them, Arya. They overheard our conversations, especially when you tried to justify your so-called temporary separation. I continued, I'm proud of our girls. They understood exactly what was happening between you and Owen. They talked it over between themselves and made their own decisions. They were furious when we left, and that changed the direction of my life. They know more than you think, her voice cracked as she asked, do they hate me? I shook my head, though I didn't soften my tone. For someone with a degree in sociology, you sure lack insight. Yes, they know you were unfaithful, and yes, they're angry with you for it. You might be able to repair your relationship with them, but they're at that age where things can be unpredictable. They're not children anymore, they're growing into adults. How you connect with them from here on out is uncertain. As the court date loomed, Arya's pleas grew more desperate, but I stood my ground. When the court-mandated reconciliation period ended, I proposed that Arya sign a custody agreement as part of the divorce. The agreement outlined that the girls would live with me. Arya was defiant. "I won't sign anything," she declared. "Then I'll take it to court," I warned. "The court will listen to me, talk to the girls, and make a decision." "I doubt it'll go your way, you can't be so sure," she shot back. "Court decisions can be appealed, good luck with that," I replied, my patience nearly gone. "Ethan, I know I made a terrible mistake," she said, her voice pleading. "I realize now how wrong I was. Please, I love you, and I'll never see Owen again, so you're just going to replace him with someone else?" I asked coldly. "That's your call. Don't put this on me. You're the sociologist. Now, if you're done, I have things to take care of. If you change your mind about the agreement, sign it in front of a notary so it holds up in court." As the court's reconciliation deadline passed, Arya made desperate attempts to reconnect with our daughters, but they wanted no part of it. After school, they went to their computer science classes and came home with me. We settled into a new routine, one where Arya's presence was mostly ignored. She spent time with the girls occasionally, but they were distant, their relationship with her fractured beyond repair. One day, child welfare officials visited, speaking with the girls and inspecting their room. They compiled their report, which would factor into the court proceedings. When the day of the hearing came, we arrived with our lawyer. Arya showed up alone, without legal representation. She had clearly sought advice from counselors and divorced friends, but deep down, she knew our marriage was over. In court, Arya's answers to the judge's questions were brief: yes or no, nothing more. At the end of the trial, she made a surprise declaration, relinquishing her share of the apartment to the girls and offering a deed of gift. The judge noted that Arya had already taken her personal belongings, and anything left in the apartment would be removed within the week. Arya also requested a court recess to sign the child support agreement I had proposed. When we returned, she added, "I'm willing to pay child support voluntarily to Ethan, because I know the court's decision may not be in my favor." I added a suggestion for transparency. The defendant should open a separate account for each of our daughters and transfer the funds there. They'll need that money when they come of age. The judge clarified that child support and property division weren't part of the initial claim, so they wouldn't be addressed at this time. As for the divorce and custody agreement, those issues were soon decided, and the court recessed to finalize the details. Finally, Arya and I walked out of the courthouse officially divorced. The girls had been excused from the courtroom after their testimony and were sitting at a nearby bus stop, eating ice cream despite the cold. I walked up to them and asked, "Girls, what are you doing?" "It's freezing out here," they smiled mischievously. "We brought the ice cream home with us. It's winter, so it won't melt. It's good for a sore throat too." I couldn't help but smile at their logic. "Why did you decide on 19 as the age to access the money?" "That's what we thought was best," they replied confidently. Arya kept her promise and moved out, going to live with her parents to care for her sick mother. I agreed to let her visit the girls once a week, though Layla and Eliza weren't too keen on the idea. Over time, they spent time with her at our place, but their relationship with her remained strained. As for me, I spent a long time alone. New Year's came around, and I took my now-grown daughters to the ski resort where we vacationed with Leo and his wife's sister, Nora. We started building a relationship, though I wasn't rushing into anything. My focus remained on Layla and Eliza, guiding them through the challenges of growing up. Nora didn't have children of her own, but she quickly bonded with my girls. There was some initial jealousy, but eventually, Layla and Eliza came to accept her presence. Arya had a rough year. Her parents both passed away within months of each other. I helped with the funerals out of respect, but nothing bridged the gap between us. Arya continued to live her life, now centered around her daughters. Eventually, she began dating a lonely widower from the neighborhood. As for Owen, he never showed his face in town again. His whereabouts remained a mystery, even to his ex-wife Nina, who remarried shortly after their divorce. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this.